Hey, what's going on, folks? Really excited. We've got Jason jumping on. Jason is, I think a lot of you guys know Jay Valadin, Chris's son, but he's a board member for Moral Revolution. He's also the counseling pastor at Bethel, oversees a lot of the counseling, the men's ministry, the discipleship programming. He's also a really good personal friend of mine. Him and Lauren are good friends of Caitlin and myself. And Jay has some of the most powerful, potent advice when it comes to dating and single life and dating well in ministry. I really don't think there's anybody that speaks to it as thoroughly, directly, and powerfully as Jay. We've highlighted a ton his dating ladder. He's, we've done the podcasts with him. We've shared the different things that he's offered there. Really powerful stuff. If you haven't seen that podcast with Jay, you need to go watch it, especially if you're in your singles or you're dating. That's probably one of the most significant podcasts for singles and dating that I know that we've created, but I also think that has really been created. I think Jason's teaching on the dating ladder is next level. You want to get a hold of that. It looks like he just jumped on. We're going to join him here. We're going to get right to the questions. You guys have sent some great questions that we've got ahead. What's up, Jay?
What's up, dude?
Long time no see.
Yeah.
So we've been going back and forth from personal life to ministry life, like more so than ever these last few weeks.
Bro, it's awesome though.
It is. It's all one thing anyways, right? Well, hey, I want to jump into it, Jay, because we've got a lot of people that have sent questions. A lot of great response for this. A lot of people, again, I don't know that singles that are leaders that are singles are a massive part of our following, but it's a part of our following that needs desperate answers, right? It is like, man, how do I manage being single, creating healthy lines with the people I'm ministering to when I've also got attractions? How do I have that ministry impact when I'm also a human that is waiting for my spouse to come along or wanting to date or starting to date? Like, how do we create these balances? And so I think, I would probably define this group that's a part of the MR community as like a cult following, right? Like, it's not necessarily the largest group, but man, they really need the answers that they need.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true.
So they've given us some great questions. I'm going to just jump into them unless you have anything that you want to say before we start.
I'm excited to hear them.
Sweet. Such a great way to start too, I think. How do I set healthy boundaries and expectations with individuals of the opposite sex? I think that's something that both of us, I was in ministry before I married Caitlin. You were, right? So we've still got to minister to people, and yet we probably need to set some really tight parameters. Speak to that. I think that's a really good way to start us off.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Anytime that you separate somebody out, you single them out, you're sending them a message. So when I was single and ministering, I just made sure, especially with the opposite sex, I made sure that I'm not doing something with one girl that I'm not doing with a whole bunch of girls.
That's great.
Healthy, if that makes sense. So I had personal boundaries. Like, I didn't message girls past 9 o'clock. When I say message, hang out. I didn't hang out with girls past 9 o'clock because of my role. Honestly, nothing, in that type of role, when you start getting to 10 o'clock at night and you're hanging out with a girl or a guy, there's something going on. So you could say, oh, we're just friends. Awesome. Let's see how that works out for you.
Yeah.
So for me, I felt like 9 o'clock, I still have my head. I'm not going to do anything stupid at 9 o'clock that I would do maybe at 1 o'clock in the morning, where you wake up and you regret, like, gosh, I wish I wouldn't have said that.
Yeah,
so
totally.
For starters, I had to go through and do an assessment of where am I at? Am I hurting or am I not hurting? Am I lonely? Am I not lonely? So my boundaries really depended upon week to week. How am I feeling? How am I doing? What are my needs? Are my needs getting met? If they're not, again, like if I find out this week I'm really tired, I'm stressed out, and I have to, I've got to minister all this next week, I'm going to be careful who I hang around of the opposite sex, because I know that my body's looking to recharge. And what I don't want to do is use the opposite sex to help me recharge.
Yeah, that's great.
So being really aware of your needs, which all that is self-awareness. Being really aware of your needs, and making sure that you're doing well. In the times where you're even when you're dating, for instance, like when I was dating Lauren while I was in ministry, if I woke up and realized, wow, I'm really lonely right now or really insecure, which would happen, I wouldn't go see her. I would work that out with God until I felt secure, and then I would go see her, because I'm
So
tempted
good.
to push the relationship faster in order to feel secure.
Yeah.
So for me, boundaries in relationship boundaries in ministry is really simple. Keep people in the right box. If they're not your boyfriend or girlfriend, don't put them in a boyfriend and girlfriend spot. Don't single them out. Do stuff in groups. Don't do special stuff with them.
Really good.
Yeah, if you're tired, lonely, frustrated, angry, all those things. Not if you're out of your sorts, take extra special care of yourself.
Yeah.
And then make sure that you're vocal about where you're at.
How much weight of the responsibility is on the leader to be aware of, hey, the people I'm leading could start to feel romantically attached to me? And what level of responsibility do you have as the leader to be aware of that and guard against that?
I think as a human being, you have to be aware of your actions. And you have to be aware that when, again, if I am doing something, spending lots of time, and I see this happen a lot because I have interns and stuff too. So one of my interns, a guy will hang out with her several times, make dinner for her, and then all of a sudden go date another girl. Like for a month, he's hanging out with her, and then goes and dates another girl. I'm like, dude, you just sent. Verbal communication is a small portion of communication. So
Yeah.
you just spent so much time non-verbally telling her, I like you. I call it the guy in the back pocket or the girl in the back pocket. You got this person that's meeting your emotional needs that you're just kind of keeping them around, but you don't want any commitment.
Yeah, that's
And
really
then you
good.
go and find somebody else. It's cheap, man. It's super cheap. So I think as human beings, as leaders, we're supposed to set the way, right? We're supposed to set the tone. For who? For everyone else that's following us. So I'm expecting that people that are following me are carrying the same exact standard as I'm carrying, because it's health, right? It's emotional health. And so when when I was single, I made sure that I was intentional with and again, not paranoid, but intentional with who I spent alone time with, who I singled out, what message I was sending to people. And so how do you get to know somebody? If you're in this again, I like at Bethel, I was over the school ministry, so we'd get 1,000, 2,000 new people every single year that would come in.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Ton.
In order to get to know somebody without leading them on, which is probably the next question that somebody's going to have, like, well, how do I get to know people? I would spend 5 minutes, anybody that I thought was a potential, whatever your guidelines are for a potential, I won't give you mine, but whatever your guidelines are, I would talk to them for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And then if I thought like, oh, that conversation went really good. Now I wouldn't be like, hey, I noticed you in the back. I'd be like, hey, I'm Jason Valentin. How are you? Because you want to start a conversation so that they know you're in the room, and you have at least some connection, right? And if you find that there's some common bond, you want to continue that conversation. And by the way, after 5 minutes, I end the conversation like, hey, it's so good to meet you. If I want to get to know them better, I'll wait a day or two and go, hey, how was that thing that we talked about? And if they're interested, if they enjoy the conversation, they'll get back, and maybe that's a 10-minute conversation. But I did hundreds of 5-minute conversations to get to know people.
Yeah,
And
so
that's how
good.
just like the more contact you have, the more chances you have of finding someone, someone that actually you're interested in. So also group settings is helpful. But yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I'm responsible for people's emotions or reactions, but I do feel like I'm responsible for my actions.
That's great. Yeah, it's so good. A perfect analogy you gave too with that, with an intern, just that random situation. I think that's really good. Second question we got, I'm going to give the answer because it's going to be quick. I'm going to refer to your podcast, but what are some tips on dating as a pastor or leader? I think you'd probably say it's the same stuff, from the dating ladder, the trust thing. For those that haven't yet, you've got to go watch this podcast with Jason. You can go to our YouTube, More Revolutions YouTube. Spotify, any of that stuff. It's the dating ladder with Jason. I mean, I've been in ministry for 15 years, always worked with youth and young adults in this age group, and it is hands down the best teaching I've heard on dating. And I'm not saying that to puff you up. You know, I wouldn't do that, nor do I need to. It is such
That's
good
good.
stuff. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, tips on dating, pastor and leader.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that one thing that we do is we put too much pressure on ourselves, right? And so I think that we put too much pressure on the relationship, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's why they don't work out.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good.
is because there's so much pressure. Like, are you going to marry that person? Are you going to? To be honest with you, um, that's pressure you're putting on yourself. Even if the world around you is asking, like, how much do you like them? Are you? Because the spotlight's on you. You're responsible for your own emotions, and therefore managing. You got to manage the pace of the relationship, and don't put. For me, the number one problem that people have, uh, in general, whether you're a leader or not, is they move the relationship. Typically, they either move it too fast, way too fast, or because of past issues, they don't move it at all. So
Yeah,
they're so
that's
afraid.
wow.
Yeah, they're so afraid of doing something wrong that they're just stuck. And the thing is like you might fail. You just don't want to fail morally. You might fail in different areas. You may not know how to do a relationship perfect. That's fine. Just be the person that goes, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing," and get input. Admit where you're not strong. Find somebody that you could put on your team that's an expert in dating to
Yeah,
help move you along,
that's
or to
great.
make sure that you're not moving it too fast. Again, the other thing that I can't stress enough is just really good self-awareness, not being self-conscious, but how am I doing? How are they doing? What's going on inside of me? Do I need to? Am I good, or do I actually need to take some time, work out my insecurity issue as you're dating, as you're going on? If you have red flags that are going up in your life, you want to be vocal about those. That's not the time to hide them. And
Yeah,
typically we hide those things. So the
so
number one
good,
problem that I
Jay.
see is people go too quick, too fast. That'll get you in trouble faster than anything. Even when you start throwing God into it, like God told me, when you start godding your relationship up, you're in trouble. So a
Well, and
relationship,
I feel like sometimes people use that to get out of a tough conversation that they don't want to own.
100%. Or they don't. They see, if this is God's idea, then no one else can turn it down.
Right.
It's a trump card. And the truth is like, no, your relationship. A lot of people think that relationship should be like Disneyland, right? It should just happen organically. That's one of the worst ways to build a relationship.
Hmm.
It's just whatever happens, happens. You
Yeah.
really want to be intentional. I think guys should open up the emotional door for the women. They should be taking most of the risk at first. It doesn't always happen that way, but I do think that emotionally guys should be,
Yeah.
how before you guys hold hands, a guy should have initiated, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling with this part of the relationship? Are you ready to hold hands? Before we kiss, are you at a place where you feel comfortable with kissing? Opening up that emotional door, guys, so that you're creating a platform of trust, right? Because even if you don't marry him, listen, if the relationship doesn't go all the way, that's fine. That's okay. You should be able to leave somebody better off than when you found them. And if you can't leave somebody better off than when you found them, then you shouldn't date.
So good.
At this age, you shouldn't date. So the real question is, can I leave somebody out better than I found them? Now, that doesn't mean that they're disappointed if we break up.
Yeah.
Disappointment's part of the game. But traumatized and disappointed, those are two different things.
Yeah.
And if you are being intentional and responsible about going, hey, how are you doing? I know we've only went out for coffee. I don't want to put a ton of pressure on it, or we went out for a walk. Do you feel okay with going on another day? I really enjoyed it. Either person can initiate that. You do that 3 or 4 times. Hey, I'm feeling a need to actually define where we're at.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that, but the more you can intentionally define where you're at, I mean, we're adults. You're not 14 anymore. You shouldn't find yourself accidentally in a spot like holding hands or giving out intimacy. You should not find yourself accidentally giving out intimacy. You're going to be in trouble.
Such a good line. And I think that's one of the things that media has kind of robbed and lied to us about is that passion and accidental, organic falling into the sexual moment is the most exciting way. And there may even be some truth to that. The reality is it's not the safest way, and it doesn't create a healthy foundation for good relationship building.
The truth is, it doesn't build deep intimacy, deep,
Mm.
long-lasting intimacy. And from the day, see, people think that their relationship, like their marriage, is strong from the honeymoon on. Not true. Your marriage starts by the first, even before it starts at friendship. Really,
Yeah.
it starts when they watch you from stage. Are you the same person from stage as you are when you're dating them? Are you the same person when you're dating them as you are when you're married to them? You know,
Yeah.
and those are a lot of talks we have with our wives, right? Like, hey, you did really good when we were dating at this, but I haven't felt pursued, or I haven't felt, you know,
Yeah.
and you're like, shoot, man, I gotta pull my bootstraps back up,
Yeah, man.
and it's not apples and apples, but you know, I
That's it.
gotta hustle a little bit here.
It's good. Really good. Okay, a
Let me
couple
just
quick.
say this just so they can
Yeah.
have it really quick. When your intimacy goes above your level of trust, you're in trouble.
And he breaks that down beautifully in the podcast, people.
I do. That's all I'm going to give here so they go watch it.
Have we mentioned the podcast yet? I don't know if we've mentioned that.
I don't know. It might take 20 minutes out of their life or something.
Yeah, exactly. Answer a couple easy questions. No, we did not intentionally coordinate our shirts. That is not really Jason and I's style. It just, great minds think alike, I suppose.
We're good.
Is it inappropriate to think of someone of the opposite sex romantically when you're in leadership over them? You know, if they're in the ministry that you're leading, or even a lay leader, you know, what does that look like? What are those lines?
Yeah, I mean, if they're not married and you're interested in them,
and you're both adults and you're not leading a youth group.
why not leading a youth group?
Because if you're leading a youth group, the person you're leading is probably 14.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I'll just give that disclaimer and now
Yeah,
go.
totally. Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, I was leading a school ministry student and a school ministry, and Lauren was a student. So, you know, I was 28 and she was 24 at the time, which isn't a crazy gap. So I just had to be smart, you know, had to be super smart about it. To me, when I start, if I can't open up and tell people what's going on and what's happened in my life, I'm in trouble, you know. So
that is so good, Jay.
Yeah, I just ran the relationship like that. You know, anything that I was afraid to tell my dad or Pastor Bill, we just didn't do. And we messed up a couple times. You know, went further in the boundaries than we wanted to. I'm not gonna say I nailed every portion of it. You know, we didn't have sex or anything like that. But those were things that, like, I cleaned up my mess, figured out why we did that, and then reestablished healthy boundaries.
That is so good.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be so either insecure or prideful that you're not willing to date somebody in your congregation. I mean, maybe the best person to date. You know, you want to find somebody with the same core values, right? And it's going to the same place. And where better to find that? And to me, my dad always said, like, I want you to be in your life and help you through the dating process. So date when you're at home. Let me help give input to you. So, you know,
but
someone.
A big part of that is how open you were, Jay. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing that's so good there is, like, so right on. Like, you want people in your culture, same values, same hunger for the Lord. But how? I mean, talk for a second of how involved you gave Chris and Bill and whoever the leaders in your life were. Like, how involved were they in that process for you?
I'll say that before I ever met Lauren, they had a place in my life that never changed. So, you know, I always say this, like, if you don't have somebody in your life that can tell you anything and you not strongly consider it, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. It's only a matter of time before you're a Lone Ranger and you find yourself in a place that you never thought you'd be, because you're not getting outside perspective. So when Lauren came in, you know, we intentionally, that's the word, intentionally, went to my dad, went to my mom, went to Danny Silk, and just said, hey, this is where we're at. You know, they met everyone.
Because everybody has access to Chris and Kathy Valadin and Danny Silk.
Yeah, and you don't, you know, the truth is like, everybody has those people in their life if they want to.
That's right.
And you may have to work harder at it than I did.
Yeah.
You know, so you may go like, well, I don't have a Chris Valentin or Danny Silk. I don't have anybody in my life. Okay, well, now's the time to cultivate deep relationship, that helps build trust. You're borrowing somebody else's approval of you in the beginning because Lauren's friends say she's trustworthy and I trust them. I trust her, you know, a little bit more than I would if they weren't in her life. Same
Yeah.
with me. You know, I'd been through a divorce. I have 3 kids and she chose to date me. Why would anybody do that? That's crazy.
Because you're so attractive. I'm sure that was a part of it.
Yeah, I mean,
You are a good looking guy, but continue.
it's because when she looked around, she saw Mark Brooks, who was leading the school, and my parents, and you know Brian and Jen Johnson, friends of mine, and I'm not name dropping. I'm saying these are my friends. These are the people I hang out
Yeah.
with. Eric and Candace. We met with Eric and Candace when I wasn't working for them at that time. They had us over their house when we were first starting to date, first couple weeks, and they got to know her and told me what they thought of her. They weren't
Yeah.
afraid to tell me things that they were concerned about and things that they liked. And so,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
great.
again, if you start dating somebody and everybody has to censor what they say to you, you're in trouble again. So I try and run my whole life like that. I wouldn't say I'm perfect at it. I hate feedback sometimes, but I also know that's a sign of I'm in trouble when I don't want it.
Yeah, that's so good. Really good. All right, let's do one more question.
Let's do it.
What do, you know, as the leader that you're struggling, you know, whether it's just in your mind or you've actually maybe acted out, you know, you're struggling with lust, you're struggling with some of the actions. You know, what are some tips on steps you can take to get healthy, talk, be vulnerable, accountable, whatever it is? Like, what does that need to look like when you're in leadership?
Yeah, I mean,
Obviously that's going to happen.
yeah, to me, the first question is why? Why have you figured out why? So anytime you violate your conscience, it's because you have a need that's wanting to be met and you're meeting it the wrong way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that, like, you could just write that down. Like, when I violate my conscience, it's a need wanting to get met. So, what you have to figure out is what's the actual need? What's your need? What were you trying to medicate? And again, you know, not all medication's bad. So, how long's it been going on? That's a question I'd ask. How long? You know, is this a pattern that's in your life? Is this cyclical, or is this something that just came up? You know, you just found yourself all of a sudden, you've never looked at porn before. In the last 3 days, you've started to look at swimsuits, or you started to look at guys, you know, working out, and you're looking at longer than you should. Okay, something's going on. Could be the pressure that you're under right now because of the quarantine, the loneliness. Does anybody know me right now? I mean, could be all those things. For me, here's what I do personally, honest to God. If I haven't already fixed it, if I can't fix it in the first, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 days by myself, I go and see my counselor or talk to my dad or my good friends. So I do one of those 3 things. I'm like, here I am, look at me. Look at me. See, because if something's all my fault, I can change 100% of that.
Yeah, that's good.
So it's shame, right? Shame says don't show anybody because they're not going to love you if they really see you. So the reason why we don't open up is because of shame or fear of rejection. Make sense?
Yeah.
So I want to go, I'm totally afraid. I am. I'm probably as afraid as anybody. I'm afraid, but you can have me. You get to see me. Cole, you get to see me. In our guys group that we have, I'm not afraid to go. Let me say this. I'm willing to go because I am afraid. This is what's really going on inside me. This is what's happening. I'm feeling either a pull towards women, or I'm feeling like quitting my job, or I'm angry all the time. I mean, those are signs that I need help. So if I'm going to get help, I want the best help at the highest level I can get.
Yeah.
I look at it as an investment. So, you know, we fix our cars with mechanics. We don't call our best friends over and try and like jimmy through how to fix your car. You invest in your vehicle. You invest in your mind. With schooling, you should also invest in your emotional care through counselors or coaches, or even just whatever the highest level that you can afford, do that.
Yeah.
So if you have to save money, if you've been on a cyclical, you know, a cycle, if you have to save money to be able to afford a counselor to help walk you through it, do it, man. You're talking about your life.
Yeah.
And the reality is, this is what I've done for a living forever. And again, like, no one here can purchase my time. So I'm not selling myself going like, sign up to be on my course. There is no course for you to sign up on. This is really my opinion. What I've found, Cole, over the last 20 years of counseling people, even longer than 20 years, is typically what they think will never get fixed, we can usually fix. It depends on what it is, but usually within 9 months. That would be long, right? If it's like a porn issue or something like that, I mean, ongoing pornography issue, you can solve that way quicker than what you've been dealing with it. Way quicker. Yeah. Or at least narrow it down to like a trickle, and then slowly it goes off, you know. So I'm like, man, invest in yourself. What if that costs you $2,000 or $3,000? Who cares? I mean, that's what money's for, is to improve your life. And if that means buying an expert, buy an expert. If you can do that through a course or a podcast, great. But you know, to me, the higher level, the more effect or impact that my dysfunction's having in my life, the more I focus and spend time, money, energy, experts on it. So they really have to assess where they're at.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, last, I guess, a part B of that question, to make the final question a little bit longer. What point, you know, and I know the answer to this. I know what I do in my life. You know what I do in my life, because I've done it with you and with your dad in my own life. But at what point do you need to bring your leader or the pastor above you? Like, at what point are you bringing them into the situation? You know, at what phase in a struggle, whether that goes from thoughts to actually actions. Once it goes to an action, are you bringing them in? Is it once it's a repeated action? You know, at what point does your ministry oversight need to be involved?
Man, for me, it's like this. Like, if I went out to the store tomorrow and I felt a pull, like a pull towards a woman there, like a strong pull, and I was like, wow, that was really strong. Even if I didn't do anything with it, I would figure out why I felt that pull. Like, what's the actual need? If the need was connection time, because I have, you know, my wife's had a baby. Obviously, we haven't had sex, and you know, before the baby. So
yeah,
a little bit before. So it's been a while, you know. If it's just a sexual pull, then I'm like, okay, I actually need to go talk to my guy friends, and maybe I even need to sexually have something done so that I'm okay. I'm not trying to be crude, but this is more a revolution. Like, I can do that as a married guy. As a single person, you're like, if you can stop a spark, like it's kind of like, how quickly do you stomp on a spark when it's in the forest?
it's instantly, as soon as you can get your foot down.
You can. So what do you lose by me calling you up, Cole, and go, hey, just want to let you know, I was in the grocery store. Dude, I haven't felt this pull in a long time. It's there. And you be able to ask me some questions, like, instead of just going like, hey, thanks for telling me, it's like, okay, hey, let me ask you, are you okay with me asking you a few questions? How's it going with your wife? How's it, you know, you and I, that's the questions I'd be asking, the obvious ones, right? Do you have any bitterness or unforgiveness towards her that would lead your heart to wander towards something else? You know, are you taking care of your body, your soul, and your spirit? How's your relationship with the Lord? So for a single person, it's the same type of questions, you know. But for me, it doesn't have, I think that part of the reason why people don't be more open is because they think it has to be this big occasion. Like, we got to sit down and, you know, it's going to be a struggle, like it was when their parents sat them down and confronted them. I'm like, live a lifestyle of openness, vulnerability, transparency, and authenticity. Live a lifestyle of that. If you live a lifestyle of that, then your accounts are so short. It's like, I don't just call you to say, how are you doing? I call you to also say, like, hey, if you're going fishing, like, let me help you out, or what. It's the same deal. Like, at what point do you ask somebody else for help if you're going to take your son fishing? Well, if you're not an expert on it and you want to have a great time, ask somebody who's better than you.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for me, it's the same thing in my life.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think that's so critical. You know, I think the shame piece, someone said shame is real, though. Totally agree. You know, I want to speak to that a sec from the other side of it. You know, because I've had to stomp out that spark with Jason and with Chris.
Yep.
Right? Like, we've had those conversations. I remember, you know, one thing I was going through that I talked with you about, I talked with my wife about, then I met with your dad and told Chris. It's funny, the moment I got into your dad's office, the first thing he says to me is, why is this such a big deal to you?
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, this is not what you've made it out to be. Like, this was a spark. stomp it out like you're doing, you know?
And
And
most people would go like, oh gosh, I would never sit down with Chris Valentin and tell him what's going on in my life. Like, no, those are the people you want to sit down because they're wise.
that's right. That's it.
He's like, dude, you're fine.
Yeah,
His
that's it.
empowerment, he just lent strength to you. It's amazing what a father's empowerment does. You walk out there and you're like, okay, I'm good.
Totally. Well, and I think it's valuable for me to mention this to everybody. Um, I've only been here 2.5 years. You know, I was in ministry for 11 years before that, and I had to have plenty of moments with my leaders where I'm like, oh shoot, there's a spark, and I had to go sit down with my leader that I actually, you know, I didn't know what their response was going to be. You know, and when I've had, even when I did it with, when I've had that and talked with you and Chris, because you being on our board, even though you're a good friend, you know, you play the friend role and the board member role,
Yep.
and then your dad. I'm new to this environment. I didn't know how you guys were going to respond. I didn't know what your dad was going to say or what you were going to say. And I think sometimes we're holding the wrong thing too closely, right? We're holding the image protection. We're holding the image that we think we're purveying or that we're giving off, rather than we need to be holding the character, the integrity, the honesty with myself. Am I being honest enough with myself that a lie is not safe in my head? In the sense of, I'm not even lying. I just don't even want something to be safe. I don't want there to be a spark that could light the forest on fire. The moment there's a spark, I want to put that out, and whatever means necessary, I'm going to put that out because I don't want a secret to even be safe with me. Right?
Yeah, the truth is, for me, is who's the stronger person? Who's the more credible person? The person
that's
that
good.
admits when they have a temptation or even a fall, or when they
Yeah.
even when they feel off, right? The person that's willing to admit that and face their shame. See, everybody feels a sense of shame. We have the ability to feel it. It's what you do with it. Or everybody, nobody wants to be rejected. We all deal with a sense of fear of rejection. We all deal with in different levels. So I understand that too. It's a pie, but in different levels. We all deal with, you know, pride and wanting to look a certain way. To me, I've really taken a look at it and boiled it down to the men and women that I trust the most in my life are not the people's lives who I look at from the outside and they look great. They're the people that I've ran with and I've seen what they're willing to face, and I'm like, dude, that guy took it
So good.
straight to the face. Like
Yeah.
he messed up, took it straight to the face. That guy can clean up a mess, dude.
So good.
So I'll leave people with this. Trust is not built by the absence of mistakes, but by how you clean up a mess.
Really
Trust
good,
is
Jay.
also built by repeated success. So when we make a mistake, and okay, so a psychologist will tell you this: when somebody fails and they not only clean up their mess, but they do a great job at cleaning up their mess, you are more loyal to that person than if they would have never fallen in the first place. With the company, so like these Apple phones that we use, if your phone breaks and you call Apple and they fix it right away, they say that you are more loyal to Apple than if your phone would have never broken because you know you'll be taken care of.
Wow.
Relationships aren't perfect. There's cracks, there's fails, there's successes, there's highs, there's lows. What is everyone asking? Everyone's asking, are you trustworthy?
Jay.
Everyone's asking, can I trust that you are going to be the same today, tomorrow, the next day? Are you safe for me to give my whole self to you? Well, when's that going to happen? That happens from day one in any relationship. Before you hold the hand with the girl or the guy, before you hug them, before you kiss them, it's how you run your daily life.
Jay, it's so good. I feel like it's safe to call you a relational genius. I don't know if you've gotten to that point in your own mind, but I feel like the rest of us think that that's the case.
Thanks, bro.
So,
Appreciate it.
It's so good. Great thought to end on.
One last thing, Cole. If people are listening and they go, I don't have good counselors, where do I find a good counselor?
Yeah, great.
I would recommend our Transformation Center. We do Zoom appointments, and they're phenomenal counselors. So you can just go to, I believe you can find the Transformation Center if you go to Bethel.com and look up Transformation Center. You can call there, make an appointment. It's in Redding. You could even Google Transformation Center, Redding, California, and get their contact information and get help.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for all the great feedback. Anything for women, not that we're working on. Truth to Table with Havilah is a great connection point for women that way.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for the great questions, the great response. Thanks, Jay, for all the wisdom.
Thanks for having me, man.